I'm sure a lot of us have had a bad day where you might have gotten into an argument with someone who's close to you, or you just got laughed at school or work, or you're just in a bad mood in general. I mean, happens to the best of us. But I want to ask you, what do you do when you're faced with these problems? Do you distract yourself by things like drugs, social media, or video games? A lot of times when we have these bad days, we tend to run into these things because they make us feel good in the moment. But have you noticed how whenever you run into these things, you still feel like that problem has not gotten fully away? So last year I was at a time in my life when I didn't really feel God close to me. I remember how the summer before, I was on a mission trip to Africa for my church to do some missionary work like feeding poor kids or evangelizing on the street. And before that I was actually at a Christian camp and I was just surrounded by a lot of Christians, so it just encouraged me a lot. And these things at the moment, they really helped me be focused on God. But the thing is that when the school year started that year, I just started noticing how I'm changing. I was in a different environment where I wasn't constantly surrounded by Christians. And I was barely going to church, to be honest, because I was lazy. But because of this, I started to feel myself getting more and more distant from God. Whenever I got problems that year, instead of running to God, I distracted myself with social media and sad music, and I was just feeling sorry for myself for most of the part. But the thing is that whenever I tried to distract myself with these things, the problem never really went away. I was just always asking myself, why don't I feel God close to me anymore? Or why am I not as obedient as I used to be? And the thing is that later I realized that it was because of the way I was living. When I didn't feel God close, instead of running to worship and to prayer, I ran to things that distracted me in the moment. And in the end, it just made me even more sad. And I know a lot of you have been in this situation, that whenever you experience these problems or just something bad happens in your life, you run to worldly things like TikTok or I don't know what else. But I want you to know that that is not where God wants you to run. The fact that I didn't feel God close to me wasn't because He actually wasn't close to me. It was because He was testing me. And in a lot of times in our lives, God tests us to see if we will be obedient to Him when we don't feel Him close. Because God doesn't want you to be a Christian only when you feel like being a Christian. God wants you to be a Christian at all times, even in the worst periods in your life. In these past few months, I learned to run to Him with my worries and problems, even when I didn't feel like it, and even when I think that scrolling on TikTok would be better. And every time I did, He gave me peace and comfort that exceeded everything that the world has to offer. And I just feel like a lot of us as Christians, we forget that it is through God that we have the power and the strength to endure these difficult situations. In Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, it says, "Then Jesus said, 'Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest.'" So why are you running into drugs? Why are you running into social media that will only comfort you in the moment? And I just feel like we as Christians, we don't have to rely on ourselves and on our own strength to fight our battles anymore. We have Christ who promised to take care of all of our worries and problems, and it gives us the strength and peace to carry on through difficult situations. And when you learn to run to Him, even when you don't feel like it, Christ will carry you through the situation. So I just want to encourage you, whenever you have a bad day, whenever you're experiencing a problem, run to God. I know it's really difficult. I'm struggling with this myself, but I promise you, when you run to God, you will find peace and comfort that exceeds anything that social media or TikTok or whatever the thing that you're running into offers. And if He can do it for me, if He can carry me through these problems, then I strongly believe that He can do the same thing for you.